What does it mean to be a Catholic patriot? I'm Mike Mason. This is the Immortal Combat Podcast. Immortal Combat Podcast is a podcast arm of Very Christi. Very Christi is a Catholic lay apostolate devoted to help men attain the full stature of Christ by growing strong in mind, body, and spirit. If you'd like to learn more about our work, you can check us out online at verychristi.com or stjosephsociety.org. All right, gentlemen, I hope you guys are doing well. Happy Independence Day. Happy 4th of July to all of you. I know my family and I are in our new town we moved to. We have our festivities on the 3rd. So we were out late last night, which was a lot of fun. But I hope you guys are looking forward to a nice long weekend and a celebration of Independence Day. In light of that, what I thought we would discuss in this week's podcast is Catholic patriotism. Okay. What is the issue here? What I'd like to do is I want to lay out what is problematic about being a Catholic patriot in America. Try to give you a vision for that. Give you a context, think about that, and then end on a very positive note, how you can be a Catholic American patriot. Now, this question, if you're not aware of it, is a very contentious one, actually, which I'll explain why here in a second. But you will find a lot of things online on whether or not the American founding and the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, all that is compatible with Catholic teaching. And there are different takes on that. Okay. And even from guys who I would consider faithful Catholic men, good, solid thinkers, disagree on this question. I am not going to get into the weeds of this question that much. Okay. Much of what I'm going to say here, both camps that have that debate could agree with a lot of what I'm saying here. I'm not getting into those weeds. There's lots of good resources online if you guys are interested in that, but that's not what I'm going to do. What I'd like to do is lay out the two basic approaches to political philosophy. Then what I'm going to show you is that our American founding, even though there's lots to love about it, it was heavily influenced by a philosophical position on politics that's antithetical to Catholicism. Okay, so I want to lay that out very briefly, what that is, and then what the proper approach is. Then what I'd like to do is give some marching orders of like, okay, in light of the fact that some of our founding and some of the way in which our country is today is antithetical to Catholicism, how can we still be proud American patriots? Okay, that's what I'm going to end on. Okay, some practical stuff. All right, let's talk about what a civil society is and what the state is for. All right, there's two basic views here. One, you have the views coming out of the political views of Aristotle and St. Thomas Aquinas on common good and natural law type understandings of the political order. And then you have what is called liberalism. Now, when I say liberalism, I don't have members of the Democrat Party in mind or Nancy Pelosi type liberalism. This is a philosophical liberalism, okay, that is at the root of both the modern Democrat and Republican Party. So both of them are liberals in the sense that I'm using this, okay? Now, for liberalism or for a liberal political figure, classically understood, man is not naturally social, okay? They're born in what's called a state of nature, and men form societies and enter into governing contracts with one another so that each member of the society can secure as much liberty as possible that's compatible with other people's liberty. Okay, so what do I mean by that? The point of life is to be free, hence the liberal. Therefore, you enter into social contracts with other people. That's what a government is. You make a contract together so that I can secure as much freedom as possible for me without infringing on yours. And so what politics is this negotiation or debate to maximize the amount of freedom or temporal happiness for each one of us. That's what politics is about. So it's this ongoing debate to secure liberty for the individuals. And you'll see this in our modern political discourse, okay? You have one group of people that say don't want gay marriage and another people that do. And what do? They debate and discuss and negotiate how each one of us can be as free as we possibly want to be without infringing on each other's freedom. That's how the debate goes forward. The question is not what is the nature of marriage? What is the good of marriage? Those things don't come into conversation, right? That's a liberal approach. For Aristotle and Thomas Aquinas, okay, they believe man is naturally social. Man is a political animal or a social animal, which means it is natural for man to enter into societies and pursue common goods. They would say this is obvious. When we are born, you're born into a society or to a community. It's called your family. Communities naturally are not self sustaining, so they join together into things like towns and villages and things like that. Okay. So for Aristotle and Aquinas, it's natural for human beings. We're natural social animals and we form into societies. Now, what is a society for them? A society is a union of intelligent beings, okay, acting for an end. Okay, so squirrels don't enter into societies. Humans do because we're intelligent. And societies put together for a certain end. Okay. And the end is what we're after. Okay. Now there's different types of societies then. A family would be a kind of society. That's where people gather together to for some sort of goal. Bowling clubs would be universities, trade unions, multinational corporations. These would all be considered societies because they're intelligent people that come together to attain a certain end. Okay. So for Aquinas and Aristotle, it's natural for humans to pursue these. All right. Well, what then is man's natural end? So, what's the goal of human existence? Okay. For Aristotle, man's natural end is to be happy. Okay. Man's happiness for Aristotle consists in the activity of the soul in accord with virtue, where in which a man contemplates his highest good, which would be God. Okay. So for Aristotle, what it means to be happy is that a man ultimately is happy because he contemplates the highest good, which is God. He does this in accord with moral virtue. Okay. Um, that's what man is made for. In the supernatural order, very similar to Aristotle's take. This is why St. Thomas Aquinas pulled a lot from what Aristotle thought about the goal of life, and then added to it what divine revelation reveals. In the supernatural order, man's created to contemplate God as well, but that's in a supernatural order, the beatific vision. So it's not merely a philosophical contemplation, as Aristotle would say, but it's a supernatural contemplation where God reveals his very essence to us, called the beatific vision. All right. So man's natural end and greatest good is to be happy. Aristotle and Aquinas both agree on that. It's ultimately to contemplate God, okay, and to fulfill our capacity as human beings. Now, in order to pursue that end, that natural end of contemplation and the supernatural end of contemplation, man needs certain temporal and material goods to do that. Hence, here comes politics. All right. The political order for Aristotle and St. Thomas Aquinas is made so that men can acquire the material goods necessary. They can live in a community that's peaceful and tranquil and secure so that they can pursue their ultimate end, which is the contemplation of God. Okay. So notice in the liberal mindset, okay, in the liberal order, man's highest good is to be free. So the government serves the individual's freedom. And then you enter into the negotiation on how I can be free, you can be free, our neighbor can be free, so on and so forth. For Aristotle and Aquinas, man's highest good is to be happy. And what happiness is the contemplation of God, naturally and supernaturally understood. So then what is the role of the government? What are the role of these sub societies, whether it's a bowling club, a family, a government? Those would be to serve the higher one. Okay, so the government would be there to create a place of peace so that man can pursue its highest common good. Okay. Oh my gosh. All right. Cool stuff. Very in depth. Hopefully you guys are tracking with that. Now, when we think about this idea that the societies we enter into serve ends and goals, that we have an ultimate end, contemplation of God, and then we have other ends, like the end of the political government is to create peace and prosperity so that we can pursue God. The family's end has an end. The bowling league has an end. We see that there's this hierarchy of societies, or different kinds of societies and different hierarchies. Okay. Well, societies can be perfect or imperfect. Imperfect or imperfect does not imply good or bad. An imperfect society is a society that only fulfills part of what a human's life's about. So let's take like a bowling society, a bowling club. If you like to go bowling because it's fun and recreational, that's an imperfect society because it doesn't fulfill what man is made for. It can serve that to a certain extent. Okay, it serves a part of what life's about, namely recreation and fun, but it doesn't serve the ultimate. All imperfect societies, okay, And again, imperfect does not imply bad. Imperfect societies do not fulfill man's ultimate good. Okay. And they don't contain everything within them to achieve man's end. Okay. So they're imperfect because they don't achieve the ultimate end, and then they don't contain everything necessary for that end. A perfect society, okay, is completely sufficient for the good life. Okay. And it possesses within itself everything it needs. All right. Now, in Catholic political thought, the Catholic Church, properly speaking, is the only perfect society. It's the only society where it takes men to its final end, that supernatural end of loving God. Okay. It has all the means to do so. And so when you enter into the Catholic Church, you're part of a perfect society. All imperfect societies can serve that end in some way. Okay. This brings us to the separation of church and state. All right. In Catholicism, there is no such thing as a separation of church and state. So when people say that in modern political discussions, we don't have that concept. Okay. There is no such separation of church and state. However, there is a distinction between the two. The church, which is a perfect society, has a spiritual power and a temporal one. Sometimes this is called the two sword theory and stuff like that. Okay. Let's just talk spiritually because that'll be something you guys are more familiar with. The Catholic Church, spiritually speaking, because it's a perfect society, has everything it needs to get us to heaven: the deposit of faith, the magisterium, sacraments, all that stuff. Okay. What also falls under the church's jurisdiction is all the material goods necessary to serve that end. So we can't say that things like food and peace and stuff like that is irrelevant to the church as a society. That's not true. The church needs temporal goods. So the temporal power of the church, okay, or the fact that the church has been granted temporal power by God, is that it can secure the goods necessary to sustain our moral life on our way to beatitude. The laity are commissioned to secure that temporal power. So the role of the laity, right, is to be the leaven of the gospel, the leaven of the Holy Spirit of grace in that enters into the world to sanctify the world to God. Okay? This is what, traditionally speaking, is what's called Christendom. In Catholicism, the church and state are not these two separate entities that's each perfect. So you have the state, which is perfect and does its thing, the church does its thing, and they don't interact with each other. No. In Catholicism, okay, it's more exact to say the one perfect society, the church or the city of God, there are two powers, spiritual and temporal, that are hierarchically arranged. The spiritual being higher than the temporal, but the temporal serves the spiritual. Christendom, as understood, was the temporal power of the church. It's where the lay people went out and sanctified the world to Christ. It is what Augustine called the city of God. Oh my gosh. Okay. So that's a brief overview of kind of a Catholic understanding of things. Now, what is the problem with Catholic patriotism? The founding fathers of our country were heavily influenced by liberal political tradition I just described. Okay. Any serious Catholic today that looks around sees that there are things in our culture and our government that do not honor Christ and his church and are antithetical to living a decent moral life and attaining the beatific vision. In short, there's much about the American experiment in its founding and in its present state that is profoundly anti-Catholic. So the problem for us is, how can we celebrate Independence Day? That's what I'm framing it. Okay, so how can we celebrate this? Well, here's how we celebrate this. And I'm going to take this from G.K. Chesterton's Orthodoxy and Frank Sheed's book, Society and Sanity. Okay, I'm going to read a couple quotes there and then I'll elaborate. G.K. Chesterton in Orthodoxy, he talks about the fact that there are optimists and pessimists about things in the world. So optimists see the world in these rose-colored glasses about all the things they love about it. And now says, I love the world because it's so great. Pessimists look at the world and they dislike the world because the world's so bad. Okay. He believes that taking an optimistic or pessimistic approach to the world is fatally flawed. I'm going to argue taking an optimistic or pessimistic approach to patriotism is also flawed. That's the idea. Here's what I'm going to say. There is a deep mistake in this alternative of the optimist and the pessimist. This is G.K. Chesterton. The assumption of it is that when a man criticizes this world as if he were house hunting, as if he were being shown over a new suite of apartments, a man belongs to this world before he begins to ask if it is nice to belong to it. Whatever the reason, it seemed and still seems to me that our attitude towards life can better be expressed in terms of a kind of military loyalty than in terms of criticism and approval. The point is not that this world is too sad to love or too glad not to love. The point is that when you do love a thing, its gladness is a reason for loving it, and its sadness is a reason for loving it more. Okay? What is he getting at here? He's talking about the world. Everybody looks at the world as its optimistic and pessimistic picture. And he says, listen, we belong to the world before we critique it. Okay? I want to submit this is what's like growing up Catholic in America. We are Americans, okay, long before we are in a place to critique it. Okay. Our loyalty to our homeland, because it is our homeland, should be a military type loyalty. We're not loyal to America because we agree with everything in its founding or everything that's currently happening. We don't love it because of that. We don't hate it because we disagree with certain things at founding and we disagree with certain things going on. No, we love it with a military like devotion. We love our country, okay, because it's ours. That's what he's saying here. FJ Frank Sheed said this: the patriot does not shine in argument with the cynic. So there's Catholic cynics and there's liberal cynics nowadays. They want to look at they're cynical about everything in America. Okay, the patriot does not shine in an argument with the cynic. Why not? He cannot say what it is that he loves. I think this is actually very accurate. He cannot say what it is that he loves. So much of it is right inside of him. If you ask him, his thought flies perhaps to some piece of scenery, some moment of his boyhood, not simply significant, but richly charged with contentment and certitude. Things of this sort he cannot be said lucidly. We should distrust love that is too glib in statement, whether love of a woman or love of country. A man loves a woman because he is he and she is she. It is hard to expound those two truths at length convincingly. So the man, so with a man's love for his country, something in his soul, something in his blood and bones responds to something in his country. Okay, here's what these guys are saying. It would be easy for us as Catholics to look at our founding, the philosophical mistakes in the beginning, and say, well, I just can't love my country because it's betrayed my Catholic faith in this way or that way. Or you could look at the political situation today or the cultural situation today and say, I can't love my country because I can't endorse X, Y, and Z. I think this is the wrong take. You love a place because it's yours. You don't love has an irrational type component to it. Okay. You don't love a thing because you like everything about it. If I said, I love my wife because of X, Y, and Z, okay, if I said that, okay, what if X, Y, and Z changes? Am I not going to love her anymore? No, that's ridiculous. Okay. I'm devoted to her and I love her because she is who she is, because I'm in love with her. And when things are going bad and there's things about her that I find agreeable, in a weird sense, it doesn't make me love her more. And when things are going poorly, it doesn't make me love her less. Why? Because I'm devoted to her. There's a lot of truth in this. We should love our country like we love our families, for better or for worse. Why? Because we were born into them. I was born an American. Okay. This is part of who I am. Before I start critiquing it, and there's plenty to critique, I'm not shying away from critique, or there's things to talk about how great it is, you have to love it first. The cynic can't do this. That's their point. There's too many cynical people in our country say, well, I can't love this country because of this thing in the past, or I can't love this country because of this right now. No, you love the country because it's yours. I wouldn't trust a man that does not love where he's from. There's almost like a mental illness involved in that. Okay. Guys, we love our country because it's ours. This is the place that God planted us. And here's the application I want to give you guys because I'm going a little bit long today. As we go into Independence Day, okay, as we're in Independence Day, there's many things about our founding and contemporary culture that are worth critiquing and not loving. Granted, there's many things about our founding contemporary culture that are worth embracing and loving. Granted, I want to encourage you guys to celebrate and enjoy Independence Day because we are American and we love our homeland. I want to encourage you guys to meditate on the fact that you love this country because you love the trees and the fields and the hills and the streams and the sidewalks and the alleys because they're yours. Okay. I love this place because it's mine. Frank Sheed, later in that book, says this: the man who lacks love for his country is a diminished man, not so diminished as if he lacked love for his family, but here is less to him all the same. The country, if one there be, which does not inspire love, is a diminished country. And however well organized the state, it is not stable. As in marriage, stability does not rest upon concrete foundations, but on a thing so intangible as love, the one thing stronger than death. Guys, we should not be cynical about our country. Okay. If you meet people that are cynical from a Catholic perspective or otherwise, and they don't love the homeland in their bones, these are not your people, okay? And they don't understand what life's about, okay? And in my sense, they're irrelevant. No, we need to love our country in a similar way, the way we love our wife, the way we love our families. Okay. We love it because it's ours. It's a military like devotion to it. And when you love your wife or you love your family or you love your homeland, you want what's best for it. So you don't ignore the things that are good, you celebrate them. You don't ignore the things that are evil, you fix them. Why? Because you're devoted to her and the sake of your mother and the sake of your wife. You're devoted to them, the sake of your family, and you're devoted to your country and your people because you love them. Your activism comes from love. Okay. And G.K. Chesterton says this, and I'll leave you guys with this thought. This is how cities did grow great. Go back to the darkest roots of civilization, and you will find them knotted around some sacred stone or encircling some sacred well. People first paid honor to a spot and afterwards gained glory for it. Men did not love Rome because she was great. She was great because they loved her. I want to encourage you guys for all the mess going on, and there's plenty of it. Okay. For the bad, a lot of the bad philosophy at the root of our founding, and there is room to go there. Love where you're from. Pay attention today, pay attention this weekend to the trees and the hills and the grass and the alleys and the streets and the people, and love where you're from. Okay. Celebrate the fact that you're an American and God placed you in this soil, and it's a beautiful soil to be a part of. Second, fight for what you love. If we truly love this country, if we truly love our faith, as Catholic patriotism, as it talks about, guys, we are laymen. Our job is to go out and sanctify the temporal order, save and fight for the thing that you love, which is this great country. So happy Independence Day to all of you. Happy 4th of July. Eat hot dogs, hang out with family, enjoy this weekend, celebrating this great country we're part of. And then let's get back to work on Monday, helping to make it better. God love you guys. Have a great weekend.